Throughout the years, equip spells have been a lot less popular than its more generic counterparts. Equip spell design leads to narrower, less generic cards with weaker effects than field spells. Still, in Yu-Gi-Oh's rich history, we've gotten a few equips which rise above the rest and shine as extremely powerful game pieces. Starting us off at number 10, we have Mikanko Water Arabesque. This card can be equipped to any monster in the field and makes it unable to be destroyed by card effects. More importantly though, it can activate its effect to return the equipped monster to its owner's hand and summon a Mikanko monster directly from your deck and equip it with this card. This is certainly one of those do-everything cards in its own archetype. The absolute versatility and ability to start off your plays with this card is extremely high. Mikanko is an archetype centered around equipping your zero-attack monsters with strong equips to make your opponent take all their battle damage. Mikanko Water Arabesque can rotate between your 3 main deck monsters with ease and do much more than that. Since it gets equipped to a monster you summon, you can trigger the effects of your Ha-Red the Sword Mikanko to search another equipped spell, or Huli the Jewel Mikanko in order to add one of your very powerful trap cards. But probably the strongest part of Mikanko Water Arabesque is the fact that it can be equipped to any monster on the field. Not only is it a starter, which finds you any of your Mikanko monsters, it is also spot removal, able to bounce the biggest star on the board before you commit to your plays. And since this effect works great going second, Mikanko has evolved into a blind going second deck, making use of a wide array of kaiju monsters you can bounce to your own hand with Water Arabesque in order to summon them again. The lack of restrictions on this card makes it able to even be splashed into other decks, with a small Mikanko engine seeing experimentation in Infernoble decks, since it works as a good going second card who fetches a Fire Warrior and adds an equip spell, by way of summoning Ha-Red the Sword Mikanko. While Mikanko hasn't made a lot of competitive showings, Mikanko Water Arabesque is one of the most individually powerful equipped spells ever printed. And at number 9, we have Supervise. This spell can only be equipped to a Gemini monster and grants it the effect it would gain from being normal summoned twice. Also, if it's sent to the graveyard, it lets you summon a normal monster back from the grave, and keep in mind that Gemini monsters are normal monsters in the grave. This card, like our last entry, hasn't really seen much recent play, but during the time when it was good, it was extremely good. Edison format is by far the most popular alternative format to play, and the Gemini deck has seen a lot of success in tournaments. This deck aims to use very powerful effects like Blazing Butterfly or Dark Valkyria, which are locked behind being Geminis, by employing Supervise and other tools. The deck is a consistency resource engine which tops off its plays with the Black Bearded Drago or with the all-powerful Gigaplant. And if there's a powerful card in Yu-Gi-Oh, that card is Gigaplant. This card in tandem with Supervise gave birth to a combo deck which we known as Gigavice. The fact Gigaplant is, well, a plant, meant you could very easily bring it up with just a normal summon of Lone Fire Blossom, which can then be summoned back with Gigaplant, which would then summon another Gigaplant, or Titanial Princess of Camillas from the deck. This explosive value engine made Gigaplant a very powerful combo deck, making use of tuners like Glow Bulb or Spore. And dropping in at number 8, we have Saqlifice. This spell can only be equipped to a Klee monster, giving it 300 attack points. More importantly, it can be treated as 2 tributes instead of just 1. And even more importantly, if Saqlifice is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to search 1 Klee monster from your deck. It is hard to overstate how impactful 2014's Duelist Alliance was for the game, pushing the game forward into a more dynamic, faster experience. During the following set new challengers, the game evolved into what's now known as the Triangle format. Shaddoll, Burning Abyss, and Qliphort battled for the top spot in a rock, paper, scissors matchup. Qliphort's big, bad endgame piece was the now infamous Apocryphort Towers. This monster required tributing 3 monsters to bring out, but unlike the Egyptian gods which have a similar requirement, this card was actually good. Once Towers hit the board, it was extremely hard to remove, being immune to all spell traps and most monsters, while also lowering the stats of your opponent's monsters. This card had such a big impact and was such a novelty that to this day we still refer to unaffected cards like the Arrival Cyber's Adagnister or Expelliarmus Noir as Towers. Towers Turbo was arguably the best variant of the deck, and that was mostly enabled by the all-star that is Saqlifice. Since it's not that easy to really bring out a bunch of Klee monsters, the fact it essentially turns 1 monster into 2 is an invaluable advantage for bringing out Apocryphort Towers. And probably, even more importantly, it searches for another Klee monster when you do summon Towers, allowing you to find Qliphort Monolith in order to draw more cards during your end phase. I'm just saying, Qliphort's Scout was limited for a reason, and running an equip spell that essentially does the same thing and little else has to be good. And at number 7, we find D.D.R. Different Dimension Reincarnation. This equip spell has an effect which, at the cost of discarding a card, allows you to summon 1 of your banished monsters and equip it with this card. The banished zone is sometimes considered the graveyard but more, meaning that most times when a card is banished, it's gone for good. D.D.R. Different Dimension Reincarnation disagrees with that. In banished-centric decks, this card has been a mainstay ever since its release in 2008's The Dark Emperor Structure deck. That deck featured a bunch of extremely powerful banish synergies this card could work with, such as Caius the Shadow Monarch, Dimensional Fissure, Dimensional Alchemist, or Karma Cut. However, instead of the slow gameplay of the environment it was released in, the equip spell truly flourished when we started getting more and more equip spell support. Cards like Power Tool Dragon gave D.D.R a home in absurd combos which featured Isolde, Two Tails, and Noble Knights. Isolde would obviously send Divine Sword Phoenix Blade in order to summon a warrior from the deck, and the Divine Sword would in turn banish warriors for its effect, giving you both a target to summon back and a discard for D.D.R. But most of these combos die together with Christian Haki Fibrax and Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon. Nowadays, the card has found a home in Infernoble lists, where it can act as either an extender or a combo piece in certain lines to avoid the all-powerful Nibiru the Primal Being. And 5 to number 6 spot, we have Infernoble Arms Durendal. This is an equip spell which can be equipped to any monster in the field, doesn't even have to be your monster, and has an effect where, once per turn, you can add one level 5 or lower fire warrior monster from your deck to your hand, and then destroy this card. Also, if the monster is equipped to leaves the field, Infernoble Arms Durendal will allow you to revive a level 5 or lower fire warrior monster from your graveyard, while also locking you into only summoning warrior monsters that turn. While you can only choose to use one of these effects, both of them are extremely powerful effects, which give Durendal a place in a few decks which make very good use of equip spells. For example, Vanquishing Soul commonly employs this card to search for Vanquished Soul Razin, their most important card since that's a fire warrior. Other decks like Agoki have also played to search for generic warrior extenders like Fire Flint Lady or Super Quanto Red Layer. However, the place where the card has found its home and where it's most useful is obviously in Infernoble Knights. This archetype based on the legend of Charlemagne took the design space started by the Arturian Noble Knights and made it actually playable. We met these fiery warriors in 2020's Rise of the Duelist when they took the format by storm through absurd combos which exploited the now banned Smoke Grenade of the Thief to make a full board of negates and hand loop their opponent. Infernoble Arms Durendal was obviously an important piece of the strategy, being able to search for any of the Infernoble monsters, making for an easy playstarter or extension on top of the aforementioned generic Fire Warrior extenders. Sneaking at number 5, we have Smoke Grenade of the Thief. This spell has the particularity of not doing anything while it's equipped to a monster. Its strength, however, comes when it's destroyed while equipped to a monster, allowing you to then look at your opponent's hand and discard one of their cards. For the vast majority of the game's history, this 2004 card was unplayably bad, only seeing very sporadic play in GOAT format decks using cards like Gear Free the Iron Knight and Blast with Chain. Indeed, for the period from 2005 to 2020, the card was essentially forgotten about, and just another one of those forgotten bulk cards from years gone by. However, Infernoble Knights came out in 2020, and wouldn't you know it, Infernoble Knight Emperor Charles can equip itself with Smoke Grenade of the Thief and then destroy any card on the field. Yeah, the Infernoble Knights put equip spells back on the map, and this is the most dangerous example. During the 2020 Rise of the Duelist format, any 2 warrior monsters let these Fire Knights remove 2 cards from your hand and set up a bunch of negates, unaffected monsters, and general interruptions. The most toxic part of this combo was, however, Smoke Grenade. The ability for a combo deck to gain knowledge of a player's hand to remove any of them they might have is extremely toxic, and caused an unrewarding play experience. Just imagine watching your opponent combo off while you hold a Dark Villain no more, just to have your opponent take a peek at your strategy and remove that spell that was going to bring you back into the game, which was not very fun for a lot of players. And bouncing into spot number 4, we have Dracoback the Rideable Dragon. This spell can only be equipped to a monster you control, and if it's equipped to a non-effect monster, meaning vanilla or in most cases a token, allows you to target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. Furthermore, if Dracoback were to be sent to the graveyard from anywhere, you can target an adventure token control and equip Dracoback to it. While Dracoback was the least valuable part of the adventure token engine, it certainly was one of the best in terms of individual card strength. Sure, Wandering Griffin Rider being an Omni negate every turn, and Water Enchanters of the Temple being a 1-card combo was very good. But at the end of the day, one of the cards that often had the biggest impact was this unassuming equip spell. A big part of this power came thanks to Fateful Adventure, which can easily search Dracoback whenever you summon a monster. And if you wanted to use Fateful Adventure's second effect to find the aforementioned Wandering Griffin Rider, there's no better card to discard for the effect than Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, as it would return itself back onto the field, meaning you wouldn't actually lose out on card advantage. Another advantage Dracoback provides, which isn't printed in its card effect, is the fact that thanks to Fateful Adventure, it also protects the equipped monster from being destroyed by battle, which oftentimes can determine if your opponent can crack through your board or not. But the cherry on top is the fact that every turn it would allow you to remove one of the most annoying cards your opponents had at a time. Chiefly important among these was Skill Drain, and other such floodgates. Since most spot removal in decks is usually in the form of monster effects, which got siphoned out by Skill Drain, Dracoback provides an easy, accessible out to a myriad of cards that could ruin your day. Cards like El Shaddai Winda, Rival of the Warlords, There Can Be Only One, and many other floodgates were crushed by the simplistic nature of Dracoback the Rideable Dragon. And well, with how relevant the Adventure Token engine has been ever since its release, I'd say Dracoback has earned its spot as one of the game's most powerful equipped spells. Standing strong at number 3, we have Premature Burial. This spell has the ability where at the cost of 800 life points, you can target one monster in your graveyard and spell to summon it back in attack position. Also, if Premature Burial is destroyed, it destroys the equipped monster. Note that it specifically says destroyed, as we'll come back to that later. From the very moment it was released all the way back in the starter deck Kaiba Evolution, the card has garnered a ton of attention because of its versatility and combo potential. During GOAT format, the card saw widespread play, as I already explained in the top 10 staples of GOAT format video. However, the card's true potential was not explored until much later when Bionic Dragon of the Ice Barrier was released. While in the TCG we never had to deal with this absurd combo, the OCG was able to experience the sheer insanity of activating the non-once per turn effect of Bionic to bounce Premature Burial from the field to your hand. And since, as we discussed before, the monster would only be destroyed if Premature Burial itself was destroyed, return it to your hand meant that you kept the monster originally summoned with the equip spell and could activate it again to summon a different monster. This loop tore apart the OCG's format with never-ending combos, which mostly devolved into an FTK. The card's relevancy ended up causing both the ban of Premature Burial and the banning and later errata of Bionic Dragon of the Ice Barrier. All in all, Premature Burial might seem like just a worse monster reborn, carrying a life point cost and the requirement that the equip spell must not be destroyed. But in actuality, these downsides are either irrelevant or more of an upside, making for one of the most busted equip spells in the entire game. Banishing to number 2, we find Divine Sword, Phoenix Blade. This equip spell can only be equipped to a warrior monster, granting it 300 attack points. While that's a bit underwhelming, the card's true strength lies in its graveyard effect, as you can banish 2 warrior monsters in the graveyard to add it back to your hand. Note that this is not a once per turn effect. Now, this kind of effect might not seem that strong for less knowledgeable players, but it's actually absurdly powerful. Cards like Night Assailant and Sinister Serpent have both been hit on the ban list because they provided a recursive discard outlet, something extremely valuable in a vast number of decks. And in fact, both those cards had to receive an errata in order to stop that. The first time this card rose to relevancy was like with most equipped spells with the release of Isolde to Tales of Noble Knights. However, this coincided with one of the most deceitfully powerful engines to ever exist, Goki. Originally disregarded as a subpar battle-focused anime archetype like many others, Goki's proved to be an extremely powerful engine enabling absurd combos. Cards like Goki Suprax and Goki Rematch granted the deck consistency starters and quite versatile extenders, which coalesced into a variety of warrior decks centered around these wrestlers combined with the Noble Knight twin ladies. Paramount among the enablers for these combos, though, was Divine Sword Phoenix Blade. Since the deck made heavy use of the Nightmare monsters, mainly Nightmare Goblin, a way of getting infinite discards was very valuable, and one that you can gain access to with just 2 warrior monsters was even better. Not only that, you also needed a discard for Topologic Gumbler Dragon, the deck's combo finisher. All of this caused the card to be banned in the OCG's January 2019 ban list, together with most other absurd combo enablers. In the TCG, however, Divine Sword Phoenix Blade is still legal, and grants Infernoble Knight decks a much needed enabler to be relevant as a rogue deck. In a nutshell, Divine Sword Phoenix Blade fulfills a very specific purpose and is enabled by warrior deck's best enablers, making for quite the card. As you probably could have guessed by now, our number 1 spot is taken by Snatch Steal. This spell can only be equipped to a monster controlled by your opponent and allows you to take control of that monster for as long as it remains equipped. To offset this powerful effect, during each of your opponent's standby phases, they'll be gaining 1000 life points. As you could easily assume, taking control of an opponent's monster forever is quite a decent effect indeed. Similar effects like Mind Control, Triple Tactics Talent, or Enemy Controller have all been very relevant and powerful cards, and those only take control of a monster until the end phase, because stealing monsters is just such a strong ability. Snatch Steal's effect makes no distinction and has no real cost to its effect, making it stand head and shoulders over its competition. It's hard to understate how powerful this ability has been every time it's been legal. During its original run in the meta, it found home in any and all decks, being specifically relevant during GOAT format. In 2007, it was finally banned for good, after spending most of its existence being limited, and it stayed banned forever. Or so everyone thought, but it seems Konami had other plans for this 21-year-old equip spell, and so brought it back in the January 2015 update to the list. But there's no way an old, clunky equip spell could find its place in 2015's Yu-Gi-Oh!, surrounded by Mecha Phantom Beast Dracoback, El Shadow Construct, and Stellar Knight Trivia, right? Well, turns out it did, and that place was every single deck list. Immediately after the card was set free, it took over the format, being played in all topping deck lists in the formats that took place during this time. This period of glory was short-lived. Alas, the card was banned in the very next list, and has stayed there since. Konami very rarely brings a card back only to ban it immediately after. Another such case was recently with the Free and of Fairy Tale Snow. and I don't think I need to explain what happened to her after just 2 ban lists. Fact is, Snatch Steal does what it does better than any other card to ever exist in the game, and thus will probably forever be the best equipped spell of all time, and one of the best cards to ever exist too. Alright, and that's what we got for today. Feel like we missed something? Would you perhaps like a video explaining why Butterfly Dagger Elma was excluded from this list? Leave it in a comment below, and until next time.